So we started out Kenneth's deadlift session with a little bit of squat and bench, and then finished up with some deadlifts. So today, going through deadlifts, we can see with this form, generally the plate is pretty good. Bracing looks relatively solid. You could argue he might be a little bit behind the bar, but hard to say without some heavier weights, which we get into a little bit later.
Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, looks pretty good. So with the big thing that's standing out to me is your stance looks a little wide for conventional. Is that a deliberate thing, or you found that kind of works well so far, or that's just what you've done?
That's just what I've done, but also in terms of comfort.
Yeah. I guess closer felt weird when you've done it.
I think from what I learned it, yeah.
Okay.
I haven't really tried it closer actually, so.
Okay. Yeah. So what I see a lot with conventional pullers is their squat stance and their deadlift stance end up kind of similar sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's not bad, I think, for like more of a hybrid style deadlift where you put your hands inside, right? But with conventional deadlift, I find, except for kind of lifters that weigh like 120 kilos plus, you tend to lose a lot of drive off the floor, and you'll end up either needing to round your back really hard to lift big weights, or you just don't have any drive off the ground, right? So where I see a lot of the lifters kind of land on that wider stance as well is they're tending to kind of overextend a little bit, right? They're not letting themselves protract a bit, lock down and stabilize from there. So I want you to try thinking about getting the outside of your feet lined up with your hips.
Okay.
Right? So we're just going to go way to the other end of the spectrum here.
Right.
If you want to toe out a little, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Right? But think about just that narrower stance compared to here. Right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is your arms are going to naturally fall to the bar about here.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And in order to get around your legs, you've now got to bring your arms out wider.
Yeah.
And see how that drops my shoulders down?
Yeah.
So that means I got to lift the bar further.
Okay.
Because I'm making the ground like lower.
Okay.
Right? So in here, this way I got room. I can pull.
Sure.
Go.
Just there?
Yeah, out there. Yeah, mid foot, right?
Okay.
Yeah, great. How's that feel?
Funky?
Yeah, a little weird, right?
Yeah, just new, I think.
Okay, more just a different kind of sensation, right?
Yeah.
Anything weird about it that you're feeling, or it's pretty much just that like we changed a big component to your deadlift and that's strange?
Strange, yeah. Yeah. It's that.
So in that case, let's just go through kind of more of a general deadlift coaching then.
Sure.
Because I'm not seeing any big things that are standing out to me here. I just want to go through, like I said, let's kind of run through that checklist, right? So when I'm looking at it, a deadlift from the side, what I want to see is your midfoot and the bar and your armpits are all stacked, which they're pretty close, but I think you could wedge probably a little bit tighter. Okay. Less of a problem with a plate. As you get to bigger weights, it makes more of a difference, right? So that, and then when I'm looking at it from the front, I want to see, generally speaking, your feet are going to line up with your hips.
Okay.
Roughly.
Okay.
Right? And that you're generally pretty centered, like you're not doing a windmill deadlift or something, right? So from the side, what I'm seeing, I'll trade places with you here real quick, is as you're pulling, right, you're setting up just like a little bit too far back from the bar.
Okay.
And so when you go down to set up, your body's in the right position, but that bar's in front of you a little.
Gotcha.
Right? So you see how if this gets heavy, I'm going to get dragged out here.
Okay.
Right? Whereas if I set up to, in these shoes, for example, where it blocks out the tongue of the shoe, right? I can set myself up there, and then when I wedge in, my body's in the same angles as I was here.
Okay.
Right?
So get closer.
But the bar is close.
Even closer. Gotcha.
So I can just push down.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't have to deal with front to back.
Gotcha.
Because gravity goes this way.
Yeah.
Right? So give that a shot. Just be a little closer to the bar, kind of where the stripes in your socks kind of start to fold. Yeah, like right at the ankle, basically.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
You want about an inch or two, right? Yeah, so about there, and you're going to make your shins meet the bar. Correct. Yeah. Great. And you feel how the bar just goes straight up there, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's it. want you to set up kind of like you were before, where you're
Okay.
a little bit too far from the bar.
Sure.
Yeah, and like same wider stance, and just see how that feels. You're gonna go for 2 reps.
Okay.
So we went up to 2 plates and compared his previous stance to the narrower stance and seeing if he could feel a little bit of a difference at all in terms of technique, and visually if there was a difference when we were just looking at the deadlift from the side and from the front. Overall, it looked a little bit more improved to me in terms of his footing, but as he went through the pull, I did notice that his hips would still rise early and he'd get pitched forward in the deadlift. So next we go through a little bit of cueing and body positioning work to adjust for that.
That's it. Well done. How's that feel?
Yeah, right, I think it feels better.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a little bit less able to externally rotate my hips to gain stability at a closer stance.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe I just need to engage more.
Right. I would argue you
Try
might
and
not
think about
even
it.
need to externally rotate as much.
Okay.
Because you're tracking pretty neutral. Like if I look at you from the front,
Okay.
right, your knees are lining up with your feet,
Yeah.
right? So if you start externally rotating more, you're gonna be here. And you're doing like frog deadlift.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm just stuff in the past that I've read,
Yeah.
but with my feet flat, and I'm externally trying to think about external rotation.
Yeah.
By engaging the hips, it would be, I guess, a little bit more stable in theory.
Yeah.
But I guess you're right. Maybe coming in a little bit closer
Yeah.
might just give me a little bit more room to engage my lats and
Yeah.
through
So
the trunk.
let's try maybe one more change with this then.
Sure.
So keep doing how much external rotation you were doing before, like on this previous set here, right? With a narrower stance, it is going to feel like you can't externally rotate as much. That's totally expected, right? But I think how much you were doing looked fine.
Okay.
Because you're going to get enough where your adductors work with your glutes,
Yeah.
instead of just saying no adductors, we're only going glutes.
Yeah.
Right? We want co-contraction that's going to be the most stable hip.
Yeah.
Right? Setting yourself up over the bar, if you look at this from the side, probably be a little easier to see. When you went to that narrower stance, you started trying to pull back to being like as vertical as you were here. And the problem is you got more room to move your legs, and you end up behind the bar.
Okay.
So you get kind of whipped forward,
Yeah.
right? So instead of setting yourself up here,
Yeah.
okay, I want you to find that settling point. You're going to bring your hips up a little bit,
Okay.
and you'll feel like your arms are really long,
Yeah.
but your lats are still tight.
Okay. So,
Right? So it'll look like this, where you're here, and let's say you're here.
Okay.
You're just gonna lift your hips up a little, and you'll feel like you get really long vertical arms there. And it'll feel stable, because I can pull on the bar, and my body's not gonna shift forwards or backwards.
Sure.
Okay? There. And then pull.
Okay. So hips raised first.
Hips raise as you're setting it, let everything settle,
Okay.
and then pull. And it should feel like everything moves up together at that point.
I think so. Rather than coming up at the same time, I kind of lose balance a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, a little bit more stable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather bar path wise.
Yeah, visually
Come
to
here.
me, everything came up together once you set those hips at the proper height. Whereas before, as you're coming up, you get kind of whipped, and then you'd catch it, and your hips would kind of overshoot.
Okay.
Whereas when you set them in the right position, you can just push, and
Okay.
everything drives together.
Okay.
Looks night and day, totally different deadlift there. Big changes we made to your deadlift. Narrower stance,
Yeah.
right? Not worrying as much about external rotation. It's important, but not making it like the purpose of your stance and everything, right?
Okay.
And then setting your hips to where you can be over the bar instead of behind the bar,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
That's it.
Makes sense.
Thanks a lot, man.
That was good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. No.
Great. Cool. That's it. We're done.
Perfect.
Last piece I wanted to mention is we've got a Facebook group called Starting Powerlifting. It's a group of everybody from people who are just starting out lifting up to people who've been lifting for 10 plus years. And it's a good community where you can post up questions you got about powerlifting or lifting in general. If you're looking for advice, form review for exercises you're trying to correct technique on, or other kind of issues you've got with your own lifting, feel free to join the group. I'll post a link in the description below as well as on my Instagram bio. And see you all next week. Thanks.